welcome back to another how-to session. Today we have Dave and Hector from SHI on the mad science of deployment, augmenting human abilities. So I'm going to welcome them to the stage, and we'll do some questions right afterwards.
Hey, good morning. I'm Dave Cedar. I'm with SHI. I take care of a lot of the technical things around what we do for Apple, for management, things like that. And we've, I'd say, done quite a bit. And really want to give you an idea of not only why we're here, but also, really? Okay, come on up.
Hey, guys.
And Hector?
My name is Hector Barron. I am actually a Jamf dedicated resource also at SHI. And we want to talk a little bit about how we came to be where we are. And the how-to portion of this is more about what we learn along the way as we develop some of the technologies that we use on a regular basis to make deployment successful. And we're also going to give you a little preview of what the future holds for SHI and some of the new technologies that we're developing.
So one of the big questions is, how did this all start in the first place? Why are we here at all? And it is really a big question.
Yeah.
And it's a good time to ask it.
Good time to ask it, yeah. Right on stage.
So what we're going to do now is go back in time. And we've gone too far.
The flux capacitor might have malfunctioned a little bit.
Yes. Great Scott. So this is a little idea of where we came from, just as people and kind of as fans here. This is myself in 1990, for some reason dressed as Mac from Always Sunny. My parents let me do this. I don't know why. And yes, that was my original LC that we're on. And Hector is solving problems as always. Doing some impeccable sorting.
Yes. I was learning about sizes. I was really good at that.
There is a bonus here too. If you can name the game that I am playing, and whether this is in the app or you come up to us after, we do have a little, one or two pieces of retro Apple swag that we can give away. This is not an easy answer. Otherwise, I wouldn't be asking it. But let's actually get to where things really got started, and that was 2011.
Yep. So at the time, I was actually working at an Apple store. And this new thing came out called the iPad. It was this newfangled thing that people kind of made fun of. It had a weird name, right? It also, a lot of people were saying it was like a bigger iPhone. And what happened, though, is people actually used it and began to really get into it and really like it. And so at the time in the store, we started having roundtables to talk about businesses and how they were deploying these devices. And people would come in and ask me, like, hey, I need to deploy like 10,000 of these things. What's the best way to do that? And invariably, my answer was, let me go talk to my manager. I talked like that back then. And so it was one of those things where really there was a status quo, which was these devices were created to be deployed to the public, not necessarily to an end user in a massive company. And there really wasn't, at least on my side at the time, much questioning of, yeah, that's the way it is. That's the way things are. So the first thing we learned at SHI was sometimes you have to question the status quo. Sometimes people tell you things are in a certain way or things are meant to work in a certain way. You always want to question that. And that goes for any kind of deployment that you're doing. Is this the best way to do it? And that's kind of like when SHI comes in, actually.
Absolutely. And fun fact, this is the Apple store we both worked at. And R067 is in the house somewhere, too. Some old veterans here. But this whole idea of deployment, especially around iOS, in 2011 was a very new thing. So presenting this to basically to a crowd of folks that aren't necessarily familiar with this concept of okay, it's not an image, it's a little bit different. I want to show you what we were showing people 6 years ago and really introducing the technology that we did. And this is what we always called the infamous question slide. The idea that a lot of the folks that were looking at what we did had a lot of these questions. And some of these are still kind of unanswered, although most of them Jamf took care of. But in the early days, there really wasn't much to do. So really what we did is something that's going to look very familiar today, but was very foreign 6 years ago. Being able to fully automate deployment of iOS devices. That's going from not only the old configuration profiles, the apps, any of the content that's coming down, actually doing the carrier activations, which we do still do. Bundling that all up in a fully automated solution we called ZeroTouch in 2011.
And this was actually being done before there was any other way to do it. There wasn't even a configurator. You couldn't go in the App Store and download it. So that was going back to questioning the status quo. Somebody told us, hey, you can't deploy these things. And at SHI, the answer was like, OK, let's see how we can do it. And the reason we did that wasn't because we just wanted to be cool mavericks. But it brings us to the second lesson that we learned as far as deployment is concerned, which is you want to earn your data. All of these technologies were developed not because we thought they were cool, but because our customers asked us questions. They said, hey, we want to be able to do this. How do we do it? And then we went out and searched for an answer. So when you are deploying your own devices, always get your end users involved. Always make sure you're having them question, like, why do we have to do this? And use that information to develop your own policies and your own answers.
And for the curious, ZeroTouch was developed originally in AppleScript. That's my lingua franca, believe it or not. There's still some of us left. And the name actually came from specifically this subroutine that I wrote, which was detailing how to check if a device was plugged in without necessarily having to launch up the script first. It was just something that always constantly checked. And this was we went from the one click to no clicks. And then the name clicked. So back to the point. What actually got us going on this whole thing really was some very, very, very large asks. One of our earliest deployments was a large retailer who basically said, we want 17,000 devices. We want 11,000 iPod touches, 6,000 iPads. We're going to do a line-busting solution for our holiday crowd, for Black Friday. And they needed it in a month and a half. 45 days was what we had. And 45 days was what we were actually able to do. We said yes to this before some of this technology was even ready, but being able to optimize a lot of really what went into this, the whole idea of saving 5 seconds on a build. When you multiply 5 seconds over 17,000 units, you get 3 working days or 24 hours. It's kind of staggering. When we went past that to another customer who basically amortized their entire deployment, this was a telecom of about 30 to 40,000 units they were planned for, and said, okay, if we let everyone set up their own unit, Apple's recommendation really was all about, let's make this the best experience possible. And experience is really important, but taking into account the time to download apps, the time to create Apple IDs, that was in the millions for this particular deployment. It was a very, very, very large number. So being able to actually automate all of that, kind of take that off of folks' shoulders and let them really get to work is really what this is all about.
And the question there too was, experience is the best, right? But what really is the best user experience? And at the time, the idea was you open your new device and you have that whoosh from the box that we all love. That was, again, a great experience for me or you when we're buying personal devices. But it really wasn't the best experience for somebody who was actually wanting to just open their device and get to work. And that was another one of those questions that was like, okay, let's question the status quo, let's see what our customers want, and let's see if we can actually provide that.
And I think we definitely have, because since then, we were the first partner authorized for DEP, so we got to learn all of the really, really painful stuff very early and get as tight of a process as possible. That number I already know is out of date, because somebody did correct me on that. We're definitely much higher than there. But even just things for Apple IDs, we were, my app First Aid created Apple IDs in 40 countries, 160,000 of them. And now that, of course, we've got device-based assignment for VPP, it's not really a problem. But the folks that either are, not Jamf customers or in some sort of a bind, we need to kind of help everybody out in one way or another. It really is very much about catering to exactly what our customers need, whether they're fully prepared or whether they're just going, okay, well, we've got devices and we've got an app, and what do we do from here? That's kind of our always been our attitude towards things, is we can take them from that step. So that's kind of what brought us here in the first place.
So we wanted to establish our credibility. Our goal is always to kind of solve the problems before they're problems. And we think that the processes that we created were really an inspiration for a lot of what DEP became in the long run. So we want to show you the thing that we're working on right now. And it really is all about making your life easier. So before we talk about that one thing, just show of hands, how many of you here answer questions for your work? You have to answer questions all the time. How many of you have to answer the same question more than once? How many of you have asked, have you turned it on and turned it on again? And you turn it off and turn it on again? Yes, every
You're not
time.
doing it with the right accent, though.
You go ahead.
Yeah. Have you tried turning it off and on again?
Thank you. So, yeah, a lot of what we do is questions, right? How many times do you have a question that goes into an inbox, and then it's forwarded to another inbox, and then you need to clarify it, and then it goes back to the other inbox, and it just has this horrible circle of 20 emails before you can get to the answer? Anybody? Okay.
It's definitely become, it's something we've seen in our organization. The whole point of what we've been doing all this time is really to solve the problems that we can see. So in the beginning, it was hearing what our customers were saying. And then all of a sudden, we've grown in size from 3 guys to a team of about 50 supporting our mobility practice. And we've really seen just the scale of what questions bring can be so either distracting or just fatiguing, that we decided to actually do something about that. And in the same spirit of automation and a lot of the augmentation stuff that we've done in the past with ZeroTouch, this is what we've got coming up next. It's okay, there's no audio. There is actually a really cool background.
Yeah, it has
this,
nice.
Apologies here. The stunned silence. So Expert is what's coming next. This is our big vision. This is really what we see. We've always been known as kind of the software hardware reseller, or not known because we're the biggest company nobody's ever heard of. But the idea of being able to kind of go a little bit further in not only just saying, okay, we're going to solve your device problems and things like that, actually taking the stuff that you're good at and leaving you to that instead of, and the stuff you enjoy, rather than bogging down your day in answering those same questions over and over and over again.
And so I know what many people are thinking right now. It's like, oh, this is AI, right? It's not completely, because there's a big problem with AI, right? We've all used the bots that you go like, hey, tell me if there's a good movie, and they go like, you can get popcorn in this corner, and it's like, that's not what I wanted to know. I just wanted to know if there's a good movie. And the problem with those things is they work on a closed box algorithm, right? You take information, you put it in, kind of figures out, what it can based on the model that you are giving it, and then it spits out an answer that sometimes is wonderful and magical, but most of the time feels kind of random and weird.
It worked on person of interest, but it doesn't really work everywhere.
Exactly. So what we were trying to do is we were trying to figure out a way where we can get people involved in creating that algorithm. And we figured out that there are basically 3 things that information needs to have in order to be useful. So the first thing that information needs to have, it needs to be accessible. That's super important. Second thing information needs to have, other than accessibility, it needs to be accurate, because that's really, really important. And of course, the last thing that information needs to have in order to be completely useful, it needs to be timely. So if I were to give you lottery tickets, the winning number is, and I gave it yesterday, that's not going to matter. If I give you an inaccurate one, it's not going to matter. or if I have that information but you can't access it, it's not going to matter. So basically, those are the three problems that we're trying to address here, and here's how it works. So the first thing we did, as far as addressing the accessibility part of the information, is Expert has some AI components that answer only when it knows 100% that that is the right answer to a question. So it's not going to try to answer some random thing if it doesn't know that 100% that's the answer. But it also has the ability to determine what the intent of your question is. What are you trying to figure out? And if it doesn't know, then it's going to go, hey, human, can you tell me the answer to this problem? Can you let me know how I can answer this? And so Expert is going to ask a human. The human is actually going to be able to write that answer. That answer is going to go into a database where it's going to be accessible again, as long as Expert, again, knows it's 100% accurate. But the best part about it is that answer is actually going to have an expiration date. So as we know, technology is always changing. If something changes tomorrow, we don't have to worry about actually getting out-of-date information. The other great part about that is you actually get credit for giving that answer. So you are considered to be the expert, not the machine anymore. A lot of the people who approach artificial intelligence do it as like machines are smarter than we are, and for some things they are. Some physical models are much, much better calculated by machines. But this type of transactional answers that we give on a day-to-day basis, this type of like, have you tried turning it off and turning it on again, those are the things that we don't want to have to answer all the time. We also don't want to send our people say like, well, there's this knowledge share that you can go and spend the next few hours trying to look for an answer yourself. We want to have a level of self-service that actually transcends that, where the computer knows exactly what you're trying to ask, and if it doesn't, it sends you to the right person, so you have that accessibility. And of course, because of that, you're going to get your information right on time. The other great thing about that is, let's say I am asked by the expert system, hey, Hector, what happened in the first episode of Star Wars? And I'm not sure because I haven't seen it. I can actually direct it to somebody else.
Not episode 1, no.
Yeah?
I don't want to talk about episode 1.
It never happened.
So racist.
It will actually let me direct the question to somebody I know knows the answer, and then I will actually know that answer too. So I am not only teaching the system, but I'm actually also learning from the system. So it's a give and take. And what we like about it is it's, again, involving the human being in this. It's about being more human rather than less human because of the technology that we're using.
A large part of this really was about thinking about the person answering the questions themselves, too, because a chat interface is really great for quick answers for the user, but on the other end, being able to kind of have a dashboard that's not only something that's got a big list of stuff that you have to do, but also intelligent enough to understand that intent, to only direct the questions that you're looking to answer right to your inbox, and actually having suggested answers when the algorithm is going to be a little unsure. It's going to at least suggest, okay, well, it may be A, B, or C. You can pop that right into the conversation with a click, and you're all good, and that machine learns from there.
And this goes back to a lot of what we were talking about when we were like shaving 3 seconds on an interaction back when we were working on our ZeroTouch technology. Those 3 seconds, those 4 seconds, those add up, and then gives you the opportunity to actually really, really interact with your users when they need you the most, rather than when they're asking you the same thing they do. So the goal here is not like to eliminate interaction, but actually to enhance the interaction and to make everything a lot more human in a way that information is promptly accessible, so you can get it right away, where it's always, always going to be accurate, and where you always know that you're getting the right person if you need them.
Yeah, this whole idea is we want to make sure that all of you guys in the audience, that you're able to get back to doing what you do best, solving the complex problems, doing the fun stuff, while a lot of the more rote things in a day are either taken care of or just logged very promptly. It's become something that we're seeing very effective, and we're still aiming. We've got a Q1 2018 launch for this to be actually out there in the world. The interface has been going well. We're probably too obsessed with it. Honestly, it really has been about usability and making sure that everything is as actionable as possible.
And so the bottom line is, what have we learned from this magical journey? Well, you don't really want to watch the first episode of Star Wars. It didn't exist. But we also learn always question the status quo. And the best questioners are going to be your end users. They're going to be the people that are going to reach out to you and say, like, hey, why did it take so long to do this thing? Start writing those questions down. Sometimes as IT people, our tendency is to say, well, that's just the way it is, right? But there's always a way around it. There's always a way to make their lives easier. There's always a way to give them more access, and just to make their lives better, because at the end of the day, that's what we're here for. So yeah.
Yeah, plain and simple. That's this was a lot. I know this was a lot of information, especially for the night after a party. So many apologies to those who may still be recovering. But we really want to open things up to you guys. This is it's a big thing. So if you have any questions, anything that you can think of on this, I think we've got a microphone set up over here. Definitely come on up and ask us anything.
Hi, guys.
Hi.
Great presentation.
Thank you.
Thanks.
Tell us a little bit about how the app will be distributed. And tell us a little bit about how your app will be distributed.
Okay.
I apologize. What?
How the app will be distributed?
Oh, how we distribute for Apple? Or?
This app.
Oh, how the app is distributed. I apologize. My ears are still a bit clogged. Basically, we have an iOS app right now for the client side. As it stands, we are optimizing this for iPad Pro. Definitely on a dashboard level. If I can go back a few to show that, I probably can't actually. Yeah, this is what happens when you put a gimmicky little animation into things.
We have like 200 slides with the thing going back and forth.
Yeah, that's to make the bubbles go. And you guys have probably used Keynote before. You have to get a little creative, and that's how that goes. But the proportions of this really were set up so that it's going to be a perfect view on an iPad Pro, a 10-inch or a 12-inch, and really give you it's enough room to move around. It's enough room to see your prospective answers and actually enter the data for everything you do. And
what we're doing is we also understand that we cannot say, like, here's expert for this segment of business, because each business is completely different. So our goal is to help, when you're interested in this, to help you customize it to exactly what you need. So it's going to be your information, it's going to be your questions, because each organization is very different. And we want to be able to make sure that whatever you get is fully customized. So we would work with you to make sure that that's the experience that you have.
Yeah, and privacy is something that we're keeping in mind very heavily, too. Just the idea that we know the value of information and we know the value of who you are. So being able to not only take that information and just have it in a database, yeah, that's something that anyone can do. But make sure that anytime a question is answered, that you answered that question and that credit is given. We've got a few very fun and possibly a little bit secret plans on how to actually keep it so that your information is really ascribed to you and can go wherever you need it to go.
Yeah, because you are the expert at the end of the day. This is just helping you to apply that expertise in a scalable manner. And when we say ask us anything, we really mean anything. Like any questions you have, it doesn't have to be about expert.
I will also take Apple trivia. And that is a challenge, yes. I appreciate you guys coming out. This was, I will say, first of all, this is an awesome stage. This is a very cool place to be. And we really appreciate you kind of finding out a little bit of what we're doing outside of the usual sort of reseller stuff. We definitely want to be a little bit beyond where, just getting a box out of the way. I feel like we've done that a lot more with in the past for when deployment was unsolved, and now we want to really move on to solving the bigger problem of making everyone's job a little bit better. So, thank you very much.
Thank you.